Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Your Gift Will Make Room for You with Cheryl T. Ricks. Today we have the amazing David L. Murphy with us. Hello, David. How are you?
I'm doing, I'm a blessed man. That's all I can say. I am truly blessed. Yes.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Of all the people that I have met along the way, and I was thinking about who I could ask to come on this show and share how God used their gift, talents, and ability. You were like at the top of the list. But for some reason, with all your schedule and all that you do, I said, I got to wait until, I get in it a little better. So when I interview David, it'll be a little more polished and I have more experience. Not that you require that, but because you deserve that. So I just want to say welcome to the show. And what I like to do this time around is just share with us who you are and some of the things you do and how is God using you to share your gifts and blessings with the world.
Sometimes they say you have to be careful what you ask for because I am a seasoned gentleman, as some would say. I'm considered an elder. And if you're an elder, if you reach that status in life, that means you've been around the block once or twice. So you have a lot to talk about, a lot of things that has happened and transpired in your lifetime. But to make things short, first and foremost, my name is David Murphy. That's what my parents named me. But I am a servant. I consider myself a servant of servants. And that came because of many trials and tribulations, just like any other man. I've been up on the rough side of the mountain, but thank God that God made me aware of who He is and why He is and why I am. And it took a long, long journey to figure all of this out. But once you do figure it out, Cheryl, all I can say, it's been a tremendous ride. It's been some ups and downs, laughter, joy, cry, tears, and so many other things along the road. But this is, what they say on the surface about myself. I am the publisher of the National Black Unity News, which is definitely inspired by God. And we have a host of wonderful ladies and gentlemen and children that's involved with this publication. And Miss Cheryl Rich is one of the editors in the publication. Thank God for that because she brings so much to the table. I'm also a founding member of Black Men Unifying Black Men, and that's an organization that uplifts Black men because there is a need in the Black community, there's a need in the world for Black men to stand up. For some reasons, Black men has been persecuted throughout generations, and we have suffered a lot of things. But I believe, until Black men stand up and take their rightful role, because God does things in order, and when we are out of order, everything is out of order. So, that's why Black men need to stand up and take our rightful roles. And we've been around for almost 9 years, and we host a breakfast every first Saturday of the month, and it's amazing the things that came from this. There's no agenda. There's no membership. All we do is bring Black men together, and we have open discussions about us, how we can make our lives better, how we can introduce ourselves to one another. One of our members used to say this: it's hard to pull a trigger on someone once you get to know them real well. And so, with just that philosophy, we have met so many men who do great and wonderful things. And because of the communication, even the National Black Unity News was initiated in that, and from Black Men Unifying Black, and so many other great organizations here in the Baltimore area. And I also belong to another group called the Arch Social Club, which is the oldest men group in the entire nation. And these brothers, they put on a lot of social events, social awareness, and they do so many great and wonderful things for the communities and individuals. Also, I belong to the Maryland Council of Elders, also the National Council of Elders. And I don't get involved with too many things because I like to stay focused. But all of those things I just mentioned, most people here was about men. It's about unity. It's about bringing us together, and all of it kind of fit together. And so I'm on this road, and and those things I did mention, I was sent, I was attracted to because they had meaning, they're helpful, they're useful, and I truly believe that God has blessed these type of organizations because what it does is uplift, it's inspire people to do better for themselves. And Cheryl, that's the short version of who I am, David Murphy.
Well, that was wonderful. But what people don't know, a lot of people don't know about you, is not only do you have a servant heart and you're a servant of servants, you are the kind of person that help us see the good in us that we can't readily see in us. You see talents and ability in us that are developing. And then you help us to see that, hey, you can do this. Come on, I'll hold your hand. I'll walk with you. And that's how this podcast got started. You said, Cheryl, you want to do a podcast? I can help you. You got what it takes. I'm here to help you every step of the way. And that's how the podcast became a podcast, because David is the one that's behind the scenes making all this stuff come together. He's the one that encouraged me. He's the one that told me I could do it. He's the one to see the value of what I wanted to discuss, your gift making room for you, and using it in the community to make everybody better that you touch along the way. And it is David that do so many things like that for not just me, but other people. He mentioned the organizations that he's a part of, but what he didn't tell you is all the ways he make those organizations better, the ways he used his gift, talents, and ability to help those organizations have the kind of impact they have in the community. So, David, what I want to know is to tell us some of the gifts that you have that you've been using throughout your lifetime to enhance the communities that you live in.
Well, Cheryl, let me just say this. For people to, from my perspective, for people to start reaching out and helping people to do this and do that, I believe that first of all you have to reach within. Because see, there was a time in my life I questioned myself, and I still do to this day. But I used to have what some would call in the world low self esteem, and I used to, didn't know, just because of the time area that I came up in, I didn't see people like me in the media. When I did see us, it was not a good thing because we was made of like cartoon characters with big lips and bones in our heads. We was made to be servants and maids. So I didn't see any what you call real positive images. So therefore, I had nothing to relate to because everything I saw was negative about us. And it was a blessing at the time. I didn't think it was, but I moved to a majority different community that didn't look like me. I went to a school where very few people looked like me, and I felt the blunt of those moves that was made. I felt firsthand discrimination. I felt firsthand how people can hurt other people through words and as well as deeds. But getting back to your original question is, uh, I know we're going to speak about this quite often. God, see, God is the beginning and the end of the journey. Sometimes, even when we're not aware, we're on the journey with God. We just don't know at the time, but God is carrying us all the time. And with this low self-esteem, I didn't say that means you don't think too highly of yourself. Matter of fact, I was questioning at a very young age, 10, 11 years, who am I? Why am I? Why I made this way? Why are people mad with me? Why are these folks upset with me? I'm a young boy. And I question myself like so many of us do. We start blaming ourselves and then we start blaming the environment. And if you go deep enough, people like me, I even blame God, because I used to question God, why would you do this to a child? Why would you let a child go through things like this? And the first thing I learned after many tortures, self-torment and self-inflicting things that happen, I end up being a teenage alcoholic and all sorts of things. But through the grace and mercy of God, he brought me through those things. But the first thing that when I was with someone called recovery, one of the first things I discovered was that I wanted to know who I am, what I was capable of doing. So I never even gave myself a chance to try to do this and try to do that. Like I said, I was a teenage alcoholic. I'm talking about the age of 13. So therefore, majority of my life was trying to be somebody else to try to cover up my hurts and pains through alcohol. And so, so as a child, I never gave myself a chance, to be a teenager. I went from a little boy to sitting up in the bar, nothing in between, dealing with people 10 years older than me and stuff like that. But in any case, the first thing I wanted to know, what I had to make a living, and so I wanted to know who I am, what could I do? I had no clue. And the God I could, we will be speaking about is this. I went to God one day and it was a very serious conversation. And I hope everybody had one of these, but I hope it don't get that drastic before you go this far. Is this. When I told you I was a teenage alcoholic, there was a point in time in my life I was sick and tired of living that. I could no longer even look at myself in the mirror. That's how bad my self-esteem was. And I questioned this God. That's the only resource I had because nobody else couldn't help me. So I go to God. I call it discard at this time. And I asked God for a favor. I asked him to help me. I needed help because I couldn't help myself. And I said, if you are God, please help me. And it was so serious because this was a life and death situation. I could no longer live the way I was living. And if God didn't help me, I was going to end it all. And I had been doing my alcohol. I tried that many times before, called suicide, but then, it just didn't work out. So when I go to discard, as I called them at that time, I go into recovery. This is the last facility that I went to because I've been to many over the years. Everything they had in Baltimore City for alcohol, I was there. I admitted myself many times. But this time, things started happening because I was serious about that commitment to God. I said, God, help me. And I said, I was really going to put a gallon at it. I tried. The first thing I did, went to my counselor because I was even on social service at a young man, 27 years old. See, so that's how bad, I was into the alcohol, seizures, DTs, the works. And I couldn't even take care of myself. That's how bad it got. But I go into this facility. This time, for some reason, I've been to many. This facility educated us about alcoholism. And then immediately, I learned a little thing about alcoholism because I used to be in denial. And then when I came home, I said, it was all, this is serious time. So like I said, life and death. The first thing started happening to me, I went to a counselor and said I wanted to learn a trade. And unfortunately, she said to me, the first thing you need to do is get your education because I dropped out in the seventh grade and went to work. And so she said the first thing I needed to do was get a GED. So I said, well, that's the road I need to take. So that's what I did. It took 6 months. There was a school here in Baltimore, with actually where the Board of Education is now called Calvert Adult Educational Center at that time. And it was a full time. I went to school in the daytime. I went there early in the morning and get out about 2 or 3 like any other school, but it was for adults at that time. And after 6 months, a glorious thing happened. I got my GED. I passed it. That was amazing. I mean, that was like if you had a bucket list. That's one thing I always wanted. I wanted to have a high school diploma. Like I said, I dropped out in the seventh grade. Now, and this God, because even going to that school every day, I had to rely on God because I was sober for the first time since I was a child. The whole world was brand new. I had no one to rely on but God. Even to get on a bus with strange people was nerve-wracking. I mean, it took amazing feats to do things. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but just to get on the bus to go to a school without drinking was like climbing Mount Everest sometimes. So, but I had to rely on God. Getting on the bus, getting off the bus, walking through the streets sober, and just me and God. And God help me. I don't know. I felt like running home, grabbing the bottle again, but just me and God. I had nothing else to rely on. And so then, I started having just daily, regular conversations, just me and God. God help me, this, that. And I'm constantly asking for help. And then when I got that GED, it was so amazing. Cheryl, it was just so amazing. And then I go back to this council, beaming all over. Because I finally, in my first time, accomplished something. And then I said, I want to learn electronics. So then I was ready to go to trade school, see what I was good at, put my hands to something. Because that's what when I dropped out of school, we had a school called 452, and they had an electrical wiring class in there, and I used to love that class. I hated school, but this was the only time I ever went to school when I was in that class. Even though I was drinking while I was there, but still, I enjoyed doing that. Unfortunately, at that time, they said it was a 2-year waiting list for that particular type of field. So they went down this long list of trades. Uh, bricklaying, carpentry. They were doing all this, and then they said printing. Now I have an older brother named Walter Murphy. He worked with us in the paper, and when he went to high school, he went to a school in Baltimore called Carver Vocational School, and he took up printing. And I just remember, I'm younger, about 2 or 3 years younger than he. He used to come home so proud of the little business cards he printed. And I mean, he was just beaming. You see what I did. And I said, let me try that. Just because of that one reason, because my brother was so proud in this. So I took up printing. That took another 6 or 7 months. But during this whole course thing, me and God, you know what he did for me?
What?
You know, when you're an alcoholic and when you try to go into recovery, you can't keep going back to the same places and the same thing because you end up doing the same thing over and over again.
Mm.
And that's why I failed it so many times before. Because I would go back to my same friends, my same surroundings and stuff like this. And then I end up, no matter how hard I tried, I end up drinking again in a very short period of time. But this time, God took me, I didn't mention this part, but when I went to that school, a guy used to be a school teacher. He was an alcoholic himself. We used to drink together. He was one of the guys used to curb me, used to be involved. Yeah, school teacher. But he was an alcoholic too. And he said, man, I got this part-time job, cleaning up this school. He said, well, you want a part-time job? I said, sure. Do you know when I was going to get my GED, I would get off that bus and then go all the way up further out the community in the county and work at that school. So I would leave home at 7:30 in the morning and didn't get home till 11 o'clock at night. So I didn't have time to go back to my old environment, drinking and so that's what God would do. You trust him, And I didn't know what was going on. All I know was just a way to earn some extra money. Plus, they gave us a little stipend for going to school. So I was getting a little dollar here and a little dollar there, but my day was full. And I didn't have time to go back to my environment. So God was working me then, and I didn't, realize what was really going on. After 6 months, uh, I graduated and got me a certificate in printing.
Wow.
And here I am now. I'm double beaming now. GED, that's still sitting up here on my wall now. Both of them certificates, I'm looking at them right now. My GED certificate and my printing certificate, they side by side because they were back to back. And that was 2 major feats. I got a trade and I graduated from high school. Me and God we really be chummied up now, because I had to rely on God. So, I'm constantly leaving, and I had church experience. I didn't, read no Bibles or anything like that. It was just me and God. This God I call, just nothing else. So, just blind faith, as some may say. And is that enough? Because I'm going on and
Go
on and
ahead.
on.
You shared how you got your printer's certificate. And how did that printer certificate launch you into these magazines or these papers that you've had over the years? Tell us about how those journeys started.
Oh, wow. Well, a week after I graduated, now I'm just say this up front, and this is back in the 70s now. And it was very difficult for people of my persuasion, black people, to get jobs in the printing industry. We had a lot of mom and pop print shops. They can get jobs or, some state jobs and stuff, but it was very hard to break into the industry. But for some reason, I know the reason now, but 1 week after graduation, I know some people had graduated before and they still didn't have jobs from their school. But in my case, I had 2 job offers. And that's how great God I had too. I had to pick which one. So I picked the one closest to my home because I was catching the bus. So so I go to this place that's called Baltimore Office Supply. Still exists to this day. And even before I went there, that company was there for 100 years. It's,
What?
yeah, and it's been around for a long time. But the people who hired me didn't have no problem with my color. But unfortunately, the people I had to work with, they had some issues with me. And come here I go again, full circle, full circle. Man, discrimination one got me in all of this trouble in the first place. God has put me in an environment that had to face this demon face to face now. Again, sober this time. I was angry back in the 60s and 70s. Even though I was drinking, I was militant. I was mad, because of the way I was treated. And but this time I go into this place, the first thing they did to me was this. They put me on the printing press. Now this, like I say, this company's been around for 100 years. So they still had old primitive prints and stuff in their shop, modern stuff all the way down to ancient stuff. Do you know they put me on the printing press that was so old? And I was trained on state-of-the-art equipment. They put me on the printing press that's so old that I even saw it on a Western. You know what a Western cowboy picture. They had to
Okay.
pump their feet and make the press start running. The same print I saw it on. I was, wow. But and then they would sit around and laugh because they knew, they didn't give me too much instructions on it, because that was the way they can get rid of me real quick. He couldn't do the job. So the main thing I did, this before we had personal computers and anything, I had to go to the main library in Baltimore downtown. And I found the schematics of that press. That's what God directed me to do. So, because I couldn't, I didn't know how to run that. And so I learned every nut and bolt on that press. And they was really upset because I had that thing doing things they didn't think it was capable of doing, and they got upset. And so they moved me to another printing press. And it was just as old as that one. I did the same thing. To make a long story short, they ran out of printing presses. I was the only one in that whole department could run everything in there. But guess what? These folks, every time I moved from one press to the other, the work followed. The work I was doing on that previous press, they doubled it up on that other press. And so I was doing 80% of the work in that whole department while they ran drinking coffee, making me angry every day. Do you know, Cheryl, even with God, it took every fiber in my body to get up in the morning to go to that job because I knew what they were doing. And I had to be humble and submissive because I'm fighting for my life. I'm trying to stay sober, and I dare not go back to my former way of life. I had to truly rely on God. And this is when, and I didn't mention it took a 2-year time to get through all of those presses. And this is when I start picking up a Bible. I used to start carrying stuff to work, inspirational stuff. I used to read autobiographies about Black people who went through way more stuff than I did. But the main thing I used to pick up this Bible and I started reading from the cover to cover, everything in there, and I didn't understand. I had more questions than, why God, you do this? Why you do that? But I'm flipping through this Bible and I was trying to do anything to keep my sanity for me being angry, and like I said, it's the 2-year journey. I read that Bible twice in that period of time.
Wow.
And I was so good at the printing press that I just put paper on there, had it tuned up so well that all it did was just, just boring, just seeing paper. So I would read, why did just read, and doing everybody work. And they sitting up there laughing and joking. And then Cheryl, the defining moment happened. Like I said, it took every five because I knew what they were doing, and it took only God could have spared me during this time because I come from the street, I'm street now, and we don't take that kind of stuff, but but I'm fighting for my life. Like I said, I was humble and submissive. And one day it happened. One of them gentlemen came up to me and called me the N-word. And I just put the Bible down. And don't tell me, that's why I tell people, careful, your mind can take you this way or that way if you allow it to. And all of those years that I suffered through discrimination, all those years when I see what happened to my father because of discrimination, all that came to a head that day, that moment. I didn't, and that's why I don't be careful. Because like I said, the mind is a powerful thing. I was so angry and I'm stone sober. and I just finished reading the Bible. I just finished talking to God. And that guy called me the N word. I lost it. I mean, I lost it. I went to the basement of that building lunchtime. 40 something people within that building. And I doused the paper in printing company, but paper and flammable chemicals. And I doused the paper with chemicals. And I was going to burn everybody up in that whole place. It was a few blacks that worked there too. They just had to go down for the cars. And that's how angry I was. And then I lit the match, had escape route where I was going to run out the back door. And when I lit the match, something came over me. It wasn't no bright lights, no shine. It was just a calm feeling. For the first time in my life, I realized something, that I was not the problem. See, people was angry with me because of the color of my skin. They had problems with me. I didn't, what's nothing. God showed wasn't nothing wrong. And I blew the match out, and I cried like a little baby because I always been not a violent type of person. Matter of fact, I always love people, love helping people. Just that's just my nature, And even back then, I would give you the shirt off my back if you needed it. And that's why I never could figure out why people were so so bitter towards me. And when I blew the match out, and like I said, I cried like a little baby. It took me almost 10 minutes to get myself together to go back upstairs. And just so happened, one of the materials that I used to carry on that job for motivation, it was a thing by the Urban League. They put it out every year called State of the Union, and it talked about the progress of Black people here in the United States. At that particular time, Cheryl, they say we as African Americans spent over at that time almost like 300 billion something. And they said the amount of money that we spent equated to the ninth largest country in the world. Wow. And they say, man, that's a lot of power for Black people, in this country. But the only problem, they said, this report went on to say, we are the only people in this country that do not support one another. They say Italians, Jews, Asians, they circulate their money high 7 times. In other words, they spend their money on each other 6 or 7 times before it goes out to anybody else. We are the only people in this country that soon we get the dollar goes right back to them. And so I said, wow, but in any case, that night when I had my real encounter with God, it was like a one-on-one thing. It was something that I still can't even explain to this day. That night, first I thought it was because, I felt guilty about what I almost did that day. We want to burn people. Nice old David Murphy, gentle David Murphy can go that far to the left, and I never knew I can go there. He was capable of doing something like that, but I knew I could do it. I was going to do it, and I was upset about that. But then I started pacing the floor, and it just back and forth, and I thought I lost it. I thought I was actually using my mind for a moment because something this wasn't right. I felt like I was going to fight. Just pacing. And I was crying, Lord, help me. I don't know what's going on. I thought I was actually losing it because I used to have DTs and DTs, but you actually see stuff, feel stuff. I thought I was going back, my mind had triggered over and I was losing it for good now. And just pacing. And it took hours. I know I can imagine because, but in any case, I grabbed some paper and pencil, and next thing you know, I just sat down and wrote. I was just writing. I don't know what I was writing, just writing. And if you had to equate what I wrote, it was the best way I can say it was like a business plan. God was showing me a better way to fight back. Instead of me burning people up, God gave me a different plan to fight. And the plan went like this. I started a company, Shy David Murphy. I started a company called Togetherness Unlimited. This was this plan that I was writing about. This is what this plan would do. Because what I read about the Urban League and what I almost did that, all that came into play. God showed me a plan how I can uplift my people, keep that money circulating in our community. And that way, if we had enough business, I shouldn't have to go through. I could have worked with a black printer or something, somebody that would respect me, not because of the color of my skin. But Cheryl, God was taking me on a journey that I never knew that I was taking. That's why I said only God. This I know firsthand because, first of all, one of the reasons I drink tea, because I was, I was a shy person, very shy. I can go on do so many different things happen to me over the years. But do you know I had to go all over Baltimore City? God took me all, and I had to go into black business owners. I had to go in there and ask, first of all, identify them if they are black business. Then I had to ask the owners, I said, this is what the plan I wrote down. I said, if I was to bring customers to you, would you be willing to give them no less than a 5% discount off your product or the service? The black business owners say, sure, if you're going to bring me some customers. They said, how much would the service cost me? I said, it wouldn't cost you anything but the discount. He said, he was ready to sign up then. I said, no, I'll come back. Took me 2 years to go all over the city until I had over 1,000 black businesses. Now, I'm going to tell you something. That fee alone, because you're going to get probably 10 words out of me back in the day. But that alone, for me, just going into those business, going on that journey, because I wrote that plan down to equalize, to keep money circulating out of me that God gave me. I was on a mission. And I had to, now you talking about getting on the bus, I relied on God. Doing this, it was totally God. I was just obedient. And every business I went into was almost like walking through fire or something. I was nervous, But I just kept doing it. Then after I collected enough data, I went to a lawyer and got myself incorporated. I had to go back to all of those business owners again. And I started this company called Togetherness Unlimited. And see, Cheryl, it's like if I look back over it, even when I was a little boy, it's like God was predestining me all of this time, to make up who I am, the way I am, the things that have happened to me, over the years. And that's why I can tell people, that I know I have a personal relationship with God. But during this course of going to all these businesses, that's when I started, I was still reading the Bible. I was still bringing in literature. Then I started subscribing to these television ministries. I would order their books, and they started helping me with understanding the Bible because, like I said, I had more questions than answers in the Bible when I was reading it on my own. So they cleared up some stuff, but there was still a lot of questions. So that's when I said I need to go to church and maybe somebody can teach me something. And I went to New Psalmists and I joined that. And during the course of me even going around to these businesses. So then, so a lot of great and wonderful things happened to me. And like I say, I'll be here for 10 years trying to tell you this journey, Cheryl, because like I say, God was at the midst of it, and he carried me through it. And the reason why I started getting on that long road I took you on to tell you why I started these magazines, because when I went to those black business owners, they told me their story. They told me their struggles. They told me the difficulty that even when they said they dotted their I's and crossed their T's, they still couldn't get small business administration loans. They was working full-time jobs, still trying to operate a business. But an amazing thing happened, what God did to me when I went on that journey. For the first time in my life, I was proud of my people. So I seen black people creating stuff. I seen people running full-time jobs and running the business. I seen businesses that supported little league teams, and you didn't hear about these folks. Nobody, I couldn't find, and I'm seeing these firsthand. I'm going around this, and for the first time in my life, I was proud of being black. We will be back after this message. Welcome back. And then it hit me. I said, somebody needs to know these stories. What they were telling me, the struggle and out of nowhere, a newspaper popped. God gave me, you start a news because somebody needs to tell their story. And that's the only way I knew how we didn't have computer time. So newspapers, I knew I couldn't get on no radio or TV or nothing. So newspapers seemed like an option because I was in printing. I kind of understood that area. The basics of it anyway. And I said, somebody need to tell their story. So I went back and God instructed me to start, and I had no clue, I am not a journalist, I'm not this, but in the beginning, on this journey. I ended up with a camera. I brought a typewriter, a special typewriter, and I had to cut this before we had created. I cut and paste, and I started my, very first newspaper. I went around to some black business and did a few stories. Do you know from the idea of a thought, how God works with some of you, give you a thought, just like you said earlier, just a thought, an idea you had now doing. Do you know 6 months after that thought came, I said I should start with, I held one in my hand, my very first newspaper. And all I can do is look at God, and then I knew, I knew that, God is the creator, and through us, he creates. And I created something through God because, like I said, God was on every step of this journey. I would have never done nothing like this, on my own strength. And so, like I say, it's so much to happen along the way, but and I really had, I man up on this. People just say, I'm not trying to be churchy or religious or anything like this. Is a fact in my life. It had not been for God carrying me, directing me step by step along the way, I would have never, never done. And since then, because you asked that question earlier, the way I can see things in other people, because God showed how he can do things through me, through him. He showed me my gifts and my talents. And all of a sudden, and yeah, some people call it discernment, and you can call it anything else. But when I was on this journey, even when I was a little boy, I used to always see positive stuff in people. So that's why I say God, like I say, he predestined you. He made us in his image. And he puts those gifts in us from day one. From the time all we had to do was nurture them. And your gift will make room for you.
Yes, they will. Just they will. But you know what? We all have a story, and we've all been on multiple journeys during our lifetime. And it's something about when we finally have our encounter with God, where God shows us who he created us to be and what he put in us. And despite the obstacles we face, what people say or do to us, we still become who God ultimately created us to be. But again, we need him. We need God to help us on this journey, and I've gone through all kinds of stuff. I've done all kinds of things. And I wasn't proud of the things that I used to do. I wasn't proud of the person I used to be. And I had no self-esteem. I had no sense of value and worth. And there's something about when God came in my life, he helped me to see things in myself that I couldn't see. And he helped me see it through people like you that I crossed paths with many, many years ago. You and I crossed paths at an event I spoke at. And you said, Cheryl, I see that, you should be a part of my magazine, my newspaper. And this is the newspaper. National Black Unity News. And I said, well, I'm not quite ready for that. I had to grow a little bit. I had to come into understanding that I was able, through God's help, to write in the magazine. I mean, the actual newspaper. And it is an amazing thing. And I get a chance to share this awesome publication with a lot of other amazing people that's doing things for God and the things that God has called them to do. And I just like to know from you, how good does it feel to see how that newspaper started out in the beginning and how it's grown to today? How good does it feel to see what God has done in this newspaper?
Well, it feels, and I don't know if that's the word to use is feel, but I do know that on this journey, God has brought many people. That's why, we say our steps are ordered. When I first met you, and I always had this sense about people that I can see things in them, especially God's people. Like I say, I really rely on God. And I meet a lot of people and everybody, I'm not saying other people are bad or anything like that, but I do see people with special gifts sometimes. And I can see that in them. And that's, I don't talk that much. I talk, I run my mouth now, but if I do talk, is that because God, like I say, let me put it this way, Cheryl, I know now, I didn't know then. When you talk to me, I rely on God so much. We say we walk by sight, not by faith. Some say we walk by faith and not by sight. But we are dual beings. We are physical beings and we spiritual beings. So we walk by sight and faith. And I didn't know it at the time, but when I talk to people sometimes, 'cause like I said, I was always shy and withdrawn. I used to rely on God to use me, to say things. 'Cause sometimes because of my shyness, I kept getting pushed out there in the front, even speaking in front of people, and that was terrifying. Even to this day, I'm kind of used to it now, but it was terrifying then just to get in front of a group of people and say things. I couldn't even do that in school. It was terrifying, But in any case, uh, when I see people like you, when I run across people like you, it's not me, to speak. I approach you, but then I can't hold it in. I have to let it go because God directed me to say, to talk to this person and say this to this person. So it's not my will, but thy will be done. And so it's not David Murphy that would approach you sometime. Sometime I'll be straight up about it. It's God. So sometimes I'll be talking to you in the physical and end up in the spiritual. And so it's not nothing special about you or me. It's that God uses whom He wants to use for His own purposes. And when He used people, see, spirit recognize spirit. And sometimes God puts special gifts in people. And just because He wants to use that person as a servant to serve people. Now, that's not everybody calling, to serve out there, be servants to others. But those who are servants, that's who I recognize. And that's why I would approach certain people and I'll say certain things to certain people because not my will, but thy will be done.
And we thank you for that. Many of us have grown and evolved in the things that God has called us to do because of your impact and the impact of other people that we meet because we are part of this amazing publication. Iron truly do sharpen iron, and godly people coming together for a common good and a common purpose makes everything better. And I just want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of the National Black Union News. And I thank you for all the things that you do. I thank you for helping me with this podcast show. I thank you for allowing me to hold your hand and walk me through all these new places that you've allowed me to walk through with your help and your encouragement and your support. And for those of you who would like to be a part of the paper or would like to advertise in the paper or would like to have your own podcast show, David Murphy is the one that you need to talk to. So David, tell people where they can contact you and find out how you can be a blessing to them and them to you.
Well, again, my name is David Murphy, and I can reach me personally at 443-455-2373. Again, David Murphy, 443-455-2373. We have many websites. We have one, the main website is tnbun.com. tnbun.com. We also have a membership directory at tnbundirectory.com. We have a podcast network at tnbunpodcasting.network. I also do commercials. We do podcasting, documentaries. And if you would like to be a part of this publication, first of all, we need to have a conversation. And the people that's involved with this paper is not my will. Again, by divine inspiration, God chooses certain people to participate, and that's why I met. Man, let me just say this: if it had not been for people like Cheryl Ricks and so many others that I met along the way, she just mentioned on, sharp and on. See, they minister me just as much as I minister them. And, fairs changes, no rivalry. God lifts me up through them, vice versa. So we lift each other up, and see, this is the power of us when we can come together. See, Cheryl has blessed me in so many different ways. People don't even know, man. But so I'm letting you know. You run across this young lady, and she shares with you. I strongly suggest that you listen because it's all good. And, like I say, sometimes, it may be a little hard on you sometimes, but the truth will make you free. And but again, she is a servant, and has a multitude. That's what I do. I'm just gonna be David Murphy. She has a multitude of gifts and talents. And her heart is in the right place. She is a true servant. She's an author, man. Like I say, she's the full package. And when you come across her, just beware. You're in for a treat because she's going to bring some blessings to you. She's going to share some blessings with you. and she has the roadmap to help you get to where you want to go. So I strongly suggest that you reach out to Cheryl Ricks. David Murphy is just a servant of servants. She is the servant. I serve servants. That's what I do. And she is the servant.
Thank you, Dave. Like always, you always been encouraging, you always been uplifting, you always been supportive. It's so many of us that are out there in the world doing what we're doing because we have people like you. And when I started of doing this show and calling it Your Gifts Will Make Room for You with Cheryl T. Ricks, it's like each of us have gifts, talents, and ability that God has given all of us. And sometimes we go through the trials of life, and certain times we make decisions and choices that don't serve us well, and we find ourselves off course. So we think it's off course, but God is using the off course time to actually prepare us for the on course time. And I just want you to keep doing what you're doing, David. You are such a blessing to all of us, the ones you already know and the ones that yet to know. And I just want to keep you I want you to stay encouraged and know that God is using you in great and mighty ways. And he ain't finished with you yet. You said you're a senior servant, but I'm up there. I'm not quite as senior as you, but I'm getting there. And as long as we continue to let God use us for his glory and allow him to give us the grace and the anointing to do the things he's calling us at this season of our life, we'll have even more of an impact with what God has called us to do. And it's like when God uses us, we help people to see the God that uses us and how God is able to empower us to do things that we can't do ourselves. So I just want to say thank you for coming on this show. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your gift. Thank you for all the ways you let God use you, and just continue to be the servant of servants and learn to receive the blessings that's going to come with it, because God is truly pleased with you. So keep doing what you're doing. Until we meet next time, you guys have a great day, and look out, David. Reach out to him. And David, give us that number one more time.
It's 443-455-2373.
All right. Y'all take care until next time. God bless. This is Cheryl T. Ricks. I am so happy to announce my new podcast show, Your Gift Will Make Room for You with Cheryl T. Ricks. It's the kind of podcast that highlights everyday people in the community that's doing great things to make a difference where they live. And they're using their gift, talents, and ability to do it. My podcast will start on August the 11th and every other Friday thereafter, the second and fourth Friday to be Pacific. If you would like to be a part of this amazing project, please reach out to me at 443-447-7267.